G-Man Boxing. Do you know what I mean? Every single live he donates. I see him on other lives donating. He's got the bag on it.
Alright people, midweek report time as always, proudly sponsored by the Hit Company. Thank you once again for helping the channel out and being part of it. Let's talk boxing. So, oh boy, have we got a lot to talk about. A lot, because this week it's just been one thing after another. I've got loads of videos out this week, I'm not complaining, it's been good. I'm seeing the benefit of that. But a lot of news we got to be talking about. Now, I had planned on starting this talking about the Conor Benn, Piers Morgan. Just giving my 2 cents on it. Obviously, I've done videos on it, but just to chuck it into this. But obviously, today is a day where the main news story is the negotiations between Alexander Usyk and Tyson Fury. Now, Alexander Usyk's promoter, Alex Krasuk, was on TalkSport today. And to quote him directly here, he said they have now declared that they have offered Tyson Fury a 60-40 to the winner deal, but Fury turned it down. And negotiations ongoing, and Krasuk said, "We want to make it happen. If he doesn't want it, we can't make him want it." He's also said, "What can I say? We are ready to go. Maybe someone wants to avoid the danger and stay in a comfortable position. I don't know. I really don't care. If Tyson doesn't show up, we still have all the belts. We are not asking for a figure. We are asking for a split. And probably the split doesn't work well if someone is asking for a figure. And I can definitely say that's not our party." So, Krasuk kind of elaborating on things there. They offered him a 60-40 split. Obviously, if he wins, he gets the 60%. If he loses, he gets 40%. Now, if he has turned that down, and look, I don't know if necessarily that's the best way to negotiate per se, saying, okay, you want to give us 60-40, okay, we'll take it on the condition that if we win, we get 60. I don't know if that's the best way to go about negotiating per se. However, I'd like to hear from the Fury fans. I would. The Fury fans who are adamant that Tyson Fury beats Alexander Usyk with ease. The fans who claim that Usyk is nothing more than a middleweight and say things like, well, he technically is a middleweight because he boxes a middleweight as an amateur, to which I would say, okay, so it wasn't Eric Morales, wasn't it? It was Barrera. Didn't he fight as a flyweight as an amateur? So did Eric Morales get beat by a flyweight? Bernard Hopkins, who was light heavyweight world champion in 2014, did he get beat by a light middleweight because Sergey Kovalev fought as a light middleweight as an amateur? Does that mean that Bernard Hopkins at light heavyweight can't even beat a 154 pounder? No. It's a stupid way to try and say, well, technically when he was 16, 20 years ago. Seriously. They make it out as though Usyk is this, he's that, he's garbage, etc. And yet they claim Fury is the best heavyweight of this era and possibly of all time. So, if Fury Usyk is such a one-sided victory for Tyson Fury, and look, personally, for me, I feel if they made Alexander Usyk Tyson Fury tomorrow, I would have Fury favourite going into it, I would be picking him, but it's a very competitive fight. But if it's such an easy fight the way Fury, his team, and the fans seem to claim it is, then surely, that's like taking candy from a baby. Okay, 60% if I win, well, I'm going to win. It's such an easy fight. But apparently not. Tyson Fury and his team can say whatever they want to say about Alexander Usyk being a middleweight. They can say whatever they want about him, not being good. Who was he beat? He beat Anthony Joshua, etc. Well, at the end of the day, Alexander Usyk is probably the most dangerous heavyweight stylistically for Tyson Fury, because the movement that he has, the head movement, the foot movement, the speed, the way he's able to switch it up seamlessly, the head and body, the angles he gives. If Derek Chisora, put this in context, if Derek Chisora is able to get close to Tyson Fury, okay, if he's able to do that, and bear in mind, that was Derek Chisora at the very, very end, what the hell makes you think Alexander Usyk can't do that? And the rest. So it's a very tough fight for Tyson Fury, and I think he knows that, his team know that. They're obviously not going to come out and say it, but I think the fact that if this is true and he has turned down 60-40, and look, I'm not going to go into a big rant about Fury, and he said, at the end of the day, if he's turned down to 60-40, okay, that says to me that he sees this as a risk. that he sees Alexander Usyk as live, and he's not going to take an offer if he feels like, okay, look, I win, I get 60%, but it's Alexander Usyk, there's no guarantee I beat him. And I'm sure that's how he's seeing it. His fans, I don't know how they'll try and pass it, but of course they will. They seem to be just unwilling to face or accept truths that you say about Tyson Fury. And again, I'm not going to go into a big rant about it. I've done that enough in the live stream. But that's the way it seems. At the end of the day, I want to see this fight happen. Probably more than I want to see most fights happen in boxing, because I want to see an undisputed champion. I want there to be a number one in the heavyweight division, because we haven't had that in a long time. We had it during the Klitschko. Well, we had it at the back end of the Klitschko era when Vlad was the dominant guy and the WBC belt was with Deontay Wilder. They didn't seem to want to fight Klitschko. We knew Vlad was the man. During the time when it was two Klitschkos, their brothers, they were never going to fight. No one expected it, of course. But since then, before that, we've never really had a one, you are the man in the division. We have two people claiming they're the best. How do you solve that? Well, you let them fight. It's as simple as that. And there's no stumbling blocks in the way by way of mandatories. So should be there, should be ready to go. But apparently not. And of course, Krakus, however you say it. I always get his name wrong. Alex Krakus. I always get his name wrong. People are like, "Gee, you're butchering names again." Yeah, I do that. It's part of my stick. What can I say? But he's claiming that, people looking for figures and stuff like that, it's not their party. And as I've said before, Team Usyk have fought Glowacki in Poland, Bradis in Latvia, Hook in Germany, Hunter in America, Bellew in the UK, Gassiev in Russia, and Joshua in the UK. Am I missing any? I don't think I am. So they're happy to go into the opponent's backyard, fight them, win, take the title home. They've never had a history of being difficult to work with. It's never been that way. Never been. And also, even when they're waiting for their turn, as you may remember, when Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury were being talked about in 2021, where there was at one stage it was looking likely we're going to get this fight, Alexander Usyk was happy to fight Joe Joyce for the interim title. Obviously, when the arbitration hearing with Deontay Wilder ruled in his favour and Fury had to fight him, that meant the Joshua fight fell by the wayside. Well, Alexander Usyk was like, okay, now I'll fight Joshua. But in the immediate time, I'll fight Joe Joyce for the interim title. Yeah. So even when he's been waiting his turn, he's never been one for, making it hard and trying to do this. I mean, just look at some of the things Dylan White was doing, when he was going into the Povetkin fight the first time. He was talking more about what he's going to do after Povetkin than what he was before he fought Povetkin. And I remember saying it at the time, that's when upsets happen. And of course, well, he got knocked out cold in the 5th round. So Usyk's not got a history of being difficult to work with at all, being difficult to negotiate with, etc. So if this fight doesn't happen, from the outside looking in, it looks to me like it's going to fall on Tyson Fury. It looks like he's the reason, or his team are the reason why this fight isn't happening. I hope this fight happens. The longer we go, certainly this week, the less and less likely it's going to be that we're going to get it at the end of April. Do I still hold out hope that we'll get it this year? I do. But, I mean, it's looking less and less likely it's going to be May, probably June, July, in the summer, maybe. But imagine that this fight is taking this long to make, where both guys really, there's nothing in the way. Fury's got no mandatory due. Usyk will have mandatories due soon enough, but I'm sure they'll give him the benefit. I'm sure they'll let him get this undisputed fight over the line before they start calling them. So there it is. I mean, the whole Tyson Fury Alexander Usyk situation, it just rages on and on and on, and I'm just getting sick of it now at this stage. But look, I'm still gonna hold out a little bit of hope. I'm still gonna hold out a slimmer of hope. In terms of good fights that have been announced that I am looking forward to, Sunday, May the 7th in Yokohama, Japan, Stephen Fulton will defend his WBC and WBO Super Bantamweight world titles against Naoya Inoue. Hell of a fight. Really looking forward to it. Inoue's first fight at Bantamweight, or Super Bantamweight, and he doesn't take a soft touch, as he normally doesn't. Straight in there against Stephen Fulton. Tremendous fight. Fulton has a shot in this fight. He certainly does. I wonder how Inoue's power is going to translate to 122 pounds. You know, because he is a very... It's strange with him because his power has seemed to translate better as he's gone up the weights, where normally you tend to see it the other way around. Normally you tend to see a fighter, if he's a big puncher at this weight, he moves up, he's maybe not getting as many knockouts. He moves up again and again, maybe not getting as many knockouts. With Inoue, it's the opposite. 108, he was still getting knockouts, but he was stopping a lot of guys late or standing. Didn't go fight at 112. 115, he was looking devastating. But guys were, you know, they were going rounds, you know, when he moved to 118, it was just like, bang, just see you later, gone, bye, see you. That's it. Crazy power from Inoue in a way. How is it going to translate to 122 pounds? That is the question. I think he should win. I'd be picking Inoue to win this fight, but I think Stephen Fulton, I'm going to be sleeping on him. Tommy Fury versus Jake Paul. The rematch is being eyed for July. Apparently Jake Paul has, you know, exercised his rematch clause, because obviously it was a rematch if he lost. I don't believe there was a rematch if Tommy Fury won. So we're going to see that fight again. I mean, Tommy Fury won it decisively first time around, so I won't be as interested for the rematch as I will be for the first fight, because it was a real... Tommy Fury won the fight and there was no real doubt. I mean, I know it was a split decision, but like there was no way you can argue that Tommy Fury didn't win that fight. He won it. You know, yeah, you could say it was split, but nah. And I think Tommy Fury will win the rematch. Errol Spence versus Terence Crawford are reportedly now in negotiations with each other directly over the phone and have agreed a purse split. This is from Mike Coppinger. Don't be effing teasing me, because that's a fight I want to see. This fight, I mean, Errol Spence, it says here, he's meant to be fighting Keith Thurman, apparently at 154 pounds. If he fights Thurman at 154 pounds, he's not fighting Crawford at 147. He's staying at 154. If they can get this fight over the line, they're talking about it over the phone and they've agreed a purse split. Let's see how that goes. But that fight to me now at this stage, it's just like, oh my God, enough is enough with that fight. And I want to see it so bad. It's probably the one fight that I would prioritise, that I want to see just from a fan's point of view, over Fury Usyk in terms of everything. But it's just one thing after another with that fight. It really is. Now, obviously, Conor Benn went on Piers Morgan on Monday night. And again, it was what it was, the interview. As I said in my videos, it left me with a few more questions than I did have answers. The one thing I would say Morgan did that he didn't really let up on was he was always on to Conor Benn about the dossier, you know, why don't you release the British Boxing Board of Control, etc., etc. That was really it, you know, that was really it. And a lot of people, like Chris Eubank Jr., I'll address his tweet now here. He said, I was 99% sure Ben was a cheat. After watching the Morgan interview, I'm 100% sure. Imagine failing 2 drug tests and then trying to play victim. The cojones on this kid, or should I say, the eggs on him. A lot of people are taking that stance. You know, a lot of people I've seen online in comments, they said, well, you know, actually, yeah, like I was kind of on the fence with Ben, but when I seen the Morgan interview, it looks to me as though it's done less good. It looks to me like it's done more harm than good. And I'll address what Conor Benn, because he followed up on that Eubank tweet now in a sec. I said it in a video I did today. I just think he needs to go on a show like Simon Jordan. At the end of the day, the best thing he probably could do from his reputation point of view would be to just keep his mouth shut and try and cooperate with the British Boxing Board of Control. Even if he doesn't want to fight in the UK again, just to cooperate with them would show that, okay, look, he's serious about what he's saying. You know, he obviously believes that the dossier is the evidence enough that, you know, you can say, right, well, look, here's the evidence, there you go, oh yeah, perfect, see you later, there's your license. Even if you want to fight in the UK, there you go. If you don't, go elsewhere, whatever you do. I think that would help him a lot more. I think going on a show like Simon Jordan and getting grilled by him, which you would do, would help him as well. Like, obviously, wouldn't be nice when it's happening, but if you can just keep a level head, keep it cool, I think it would. A lot of people would say, okay, look, he's taking the hard questions, he's cooperating with the British Boxing Board. A lot of people would say, actually, do you know what? Yeah, no, I'll. And if he just kept his mouth shut, you know, stopping with the whole calling people this, that, and the other, and tweeting this, because at the end of the day, it's just not a good look. It's having the opposite effect. Like, if Conor Benn thinks that, you know, post a picture of himself on Instagram giving people the finger and all like that, is going to endear himself to the public, well, It's going to endear himself to the lowest of the low. It's going to endear himself to people who just, they haven't got a hand to scratch their arse. But that's who it's going to endear himself to. And that's a minority. It's not the majority of people. So if Conor Benn had any brains, he would just, off social media for a little while longer, or at least if he is going to go on it, don't be trying to, rub people up the wrong way, whether that's his intention or not. Just try not to do it. And my opinion would be, if you want your image to be fixed, or I think it's been damaged that a lot of people aren't going to forget. But I think what would help would be British Boxing Board of Control. There you go. Whether you want to fight in the UK again or not, it's irrelevant. There you go. I'm working with you. You see, you can't really say anything then. And to go on a show like Simon Jordan, I think would help. I really do. What wouldn't help is replying to a tweet and saying, you sat there playing the victim but tried blackmailing me for £1 million. Again, that's not, when you say you try blackmailing, at the end of the day, you need to be careful with how you word things, So that to me is an allegation. Okay, you should say it like that's an allegation. Because to actually go and say to someone without proof, maybe he does, I don't know, but to say it to someone without proof, like, you did this, that's not going to go down well. And you could end up getting yourself in trouble like that. A good example would be Eddie Hearn and Jake Paul. Jake Paul, what was it he said, that Eddie Hearn pays judges, or he's judges in his pocket, with no evidence to back that up. And of course Eddie Hearn is going to turn around and say, well, that's not going to fly. He lets a lot of things go, does Eddie Hearn, when people say this or that. But something like that is very serious. So he was like, well, you're going to be hearing from my lawyer. I used the analogy of J.K. Rowling, where some clown said that she was a part of 1940s Germany. And of course she responded and said, okay, you're going to be hearing from my lawyer after that. And of course he was pretty quick to backtrack. Oh, sorry, J.K. As they do. As those, what's do on social media. You know what those people are like. They're just... Twitter is... I know I use it myself, but it is just horrible. So you want to be careful when you're batting around things like that. You want to be careful that you don't trip up, because if what Conor Benn is saying there, Eubank Jr. could turn around and say, well, you know what, you're going to hear from my lawyers now after an allegation like that is made. You could call it defamation of character. Do I think that something like that might have happened, that he blackmailed him? What I think may possibly have happened is Eubank Jr.'s team found out about the failed test before it got leaked to the press, and maybe they turned around and said, okay, look, well, we're happy to fight him despite this, but we want an extra $1 million. That really is a bit of a grey area, because you could say, is it blackmail or is it negotiations? That's a bit of a grey area there. On one hand, you could turn around and say, well, that's actually a negotiation tactic. You want more money. This is all hypothetical. I'm not saying this did happen. But you could say, well, is it blackmail? Is it not? It's a bit of a grey area there with that one. So we got a venue for Tank Davis versus Ryan Garcia, April 22nd. T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas. I'm not exactly surprised about that. I thought they'd do it there all right. It was obviously going to be in Vegas, but we now have the location. Jake Paul gave an interview. He has now stated that wait for this, lads. He has now stated that a wet dream contributed to the Tommy Fury defeat. I woke up in a panic like, F, you have 2 weeks of testosterone built up, and so, sorry, it's funny, and so a wet dream happens, it makes your legs weak. I think it's one reason why I lost. Right, I have officially heard it all now, that nerves played no part in it, because you did look nervous as hell, and you looked sloppy, very sloppy. Jake Paul has never been exactly the most graceful in there in the ring. He's not, he's about as graceful as an elephant in there. I think the nerves got to him, and I think he just started looking for one big shot. That was it, and that's why he lost, more so than having a wet dream. I mean, I'm sure many fighters who do that, who don't have Rosie Pam and his 5 sisters out before a fight. I'm sure that happens to many of them, but I'm sure they don't. Maybe Deontay Wilder should be thinking, actually, that's a great excuse, I'll take that down for future reference. But in case worst comes to worst again. But I don't think that's going to play a massive part in you losing. I really don't think it. I think that it was just the nerves of the occasion got to Jake Paul. At the end of the day, Tommy Fury was just the better of the two. He's more athletic. He's the longer reach. He's more of a background in boxing. I mean, Tommy Fury, yes, he had amateurs. We didn't have many. He started boxing at a reasonably young age. I think it was 13, 14. So reasonably, about the normal age, the norm. But in terms of skill-wise, he's nothing to write home about. I mean, he'd be doing well to get a very well to do a British title. I mean, you might even say that's an overachievement for Tommy Fury in terms of what the skill set he has, because Tommy Fury really, he ain't gonna be writing home about Tommy Fury. I'll put it to you like that. In terms of other things we've seen, obviously we've seen Anthony Joshua saying that he's going back to basics out there in Texas training with Derek James. As I said in my video I did yesterday, is the back to basics in a sense of going back to the way the older fighters used to train, in the sense that they did more functional training as opposed to resistance, strength and conditioning training. Is it going back to that kind of style? The chopping trees, George Foreman, Ernie Chavis type. What was it, Ronnie Lyle, he said he used to do when he was in prison or something, 1,000 push-ups a day? Something like that. Ronnie Lyle used to do that. Who else? The big punchers. Because a lot of them did some very unique training methods. Very unique. When you look at them now, and you imagine saying to, a modern strength and conditioning coach, right? You got to chop wood for say a half hour, hit the heavy bag as hard as you can for a half hour, and do 1,000 push-ups. Their mind would just be like blown. They'd be like, well, how are you gonna when you're at your reds, you'd be like, no, mate, tried and tested. It'll work. Tried and tested. I wonder, is that what he's talking about, or is he talking about going back to basics in a sense of the AJ pre-Charles Martin? I'm not saying that's the fight where everything went downhill. What I'm saying is that was the fight kind of where he had, but after that fight the pressure was on. Even going into that fight the pressure was on, but before that it was Dylan White. You were domestic level, or getting to domestic level. You were looking devastating. You were smiling in the ring. Does he mean going back to that? Or does he mean changing up his training? Because if ever someone could afford to not do weights, it's Anthony Joshua. I'd love to see him just bin the resistance training altogether and just go down this road. I'd love to see it. I think AJ is just naturally a very kind of stiff, kind of robotic type anyway. But I think he would be a bit more fluid with less weight training. Hopefully we never get back to what he was against the likes of Carlos Takam, where he was doing an insane amount of weight. I mean, he was 250 something, 253 pounds. He looked awful. He looked as slow as molasses. He looked about as graceful as an elephant in there against Carlos Takam. And thank his lucky stars, it was no disrespect to Carlos Takam, but it was a Carlos Takam. Can you imagine if AJ in 2017, when he fought Takam that night, had been in there with an Andy Ruiz, a Povetkin, a Deontay Wilder, etc., would have been a very tough night for him. And even then against Takam, he had his success. So hopefully we don't see that Joshua again, and we'll see what this, back to basics Joshua looks like come his fight on April the 1st, which I am looking forward to. I have to say myself, I'm quite looking forward to that fight. We'll see how it goes. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing the undercard for actually that fight, because it's not really anything been announced as of yet that I'm aware of. It was talk, of Dylan White, but there was talk of Dylan White versus Valine, but that was to be announced. They were talking about that in April. But if it was going to happen in April, April is just around the corner, so I would say God knows what's happening there. There was a lot of talk, and I heard rumours that fight was pretty much done deal, Dylan White versus Otto Valine, but we've heard absolutely zilch since then. I wonder what is the story with Dylan White. Is he going to maybe look at going a different direction? Who knows? Is he going to look to go with Frank Warren for the fight? Maybe look at trying to get that Dubois fight over the line. I think Daniel Dubois, for someone like Dylan White, must look like a great little proposition, because he looked so vulnerable in his last fight. And Dylan White might be looking at that and thinking, I could fight Joshua again for big money, but I'll probably get a decent enough payday to fight Daniel Dubois. He's not knocked me out before, and he's got a belt, albeit a regular belt, but it is still a small claim, to the heavyweight title, if you count it. So maybe he's looking at that and thinking, do you know what? I want the Joshua fight now. I didn't want to have to fight Valine, who was arguably a harder fight than Jermaine Franklin. Why don't I look elsewhere? Who knows? I'm not saying that's what's happening. I'm just thinking outside the box here. Maybe that is. Watch my luck. Dylan White versus Otto Wallin be announced tomorrow. That'll be just my luck for talking about it, and then boom, there it is. Thank you. I appreciate that. But we'll see. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Everything I talked about in this video, leave it in the comment section. And yeah, hope you enjoyed it, people. Smash the like button if you could. Hit subscribe, of course, if you haven't already. For now, lads and lassies, I'll talk to you. Thanks again, as always, to the Hit Company for sponsoring this video. Peace.